Hello and welcome to Ecoholics. Today we are going to talk about a very important concept from the perspective of almost all economics related examination, which is the Canons of Taxation, which were given by Adam Smith. These canons of taxation are very important part of public finance, and they are also the part of almost all economics competitive examinations, whether it is UGC or it is your MA entrance exam, or it is related to UPSC civil services or Indian economic services or RBI DPR. All economics examinations require you to have sufficient knowledge about public finance module, and in that public finance module the canons of taxation build a very strong fundamental structure of taxation. So let's begin and understand what exactly are we going to talk about. When Adam Smith famously gave his book or publication in the year 1776, an inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations. So in that book, he also mentioned something related to a very good and efficient taxation system. Every economy requires a very efficiently working taxation system. Now, what is a good taxation system? A good taxation system is an economic system where there is justice to the taxation policies, and there is a certain type of characteristics which make the people of the country feel that, okay, we are a part of a very good country where things are transparent to us, the policies are transparently provided to us, and there is a certainty in the whole taxation system, right? So in order to understand that good taxation system, Adam Smith provided 4 very different and very fundamental canons or principles of taxation: equity, certainty, convenience, and economy. These 4 are the fundamental pillars of a good taxation system. So we are going to understand these 4 elaborately and understand how these 4 contribute to the tax reforms and tax policies in any economy. To begin with, we start with the canon of equity. Now, many a times students think that this equity is equal to equality. Many a times students feel that, okay, equity means equality, but actually equality is a wrong synonym for equity, okay? Equality is a wrong synonym. What do we mean by equity? Equity means fairness in the system, justice in the system. So when we talk about the principle of equity, we are saying that a taxation system should be built around the concept of fairness. It should be fair for everyone, whether the person is a high income earning person or that person is a poor person or does not have enough income, adequate income to even pay any taxation. Okay, for each and every person, that taxation system should be very clear and very fair. Secondly, we talk about a concept which was given by Adam Smith: ability to pay. So he says that every taxation system should be built on the concept of ability to pay. If the person is able to pay, able meaning that for that person it is affordable to pay the tax. Okay, so that person is able to pay a certain amount of tax, then only that tax should be collected from that person. Okay, now here we are talking about the taxes. Here we are talking about the taxation system related to income. Okay, so which is why we need to understand that whatever we talk about from the perspective of income of a person, will be understanding. Now when we talk about ability to pay, here we will see that when there are higher slabs of taxation, it would mean that these are going to be paid by higher income groups. Okay, so the people who are earning more and their income and wealth is more, they are going to pay a higher taxation and they are going to be in the higher slab, while those people who are earning less, they are going to either have a lower tax slab or a lower tax rate to pay from, or they will have a negligible tax rate to pay. So that would definitely approve the ability to pay concept, which is why in the economy, whenever a taxation system is built around income of the people, it is either related, it is either proportional or it is progressive. Okay, by progressive we understand that if the income slab is higher, then you pay higher tax. Okay, proportional again is another concept where we learn that whatever amount has been earned, similar type of taxation will be deducted, but we refrain from having a regressive taxation system. A regressive taxation system for the purpose of income tax, okay? For the purpose of collecting tax from the income of a person, we refrain or we avoid having a regressive taxation system, because in a regressive taxation system, even the poor will have to pay a higher amount of tax. So indirect taxes, if you all know, indirect taxes where commodities or services come under those indirect taxes. So if a person purchases that commodity or a service, they have to pay a certain amount of tax, which is same for everyone. Whoever purchases those goods or services, that same amount of rate of tax will be deducted from their the price. So it is not related to income, but it is related to the goods and services. That is why the indirect taxes in our country are related to goods and services and not related to income. Otherwise, income tax would become regressive in nature, which we do not want, because we want to walk on the path of the canon of equity. Now, next we have the canon of certainty. As the word suggests, the taxation system should be certain. It should have clear indications of how to pay the tax, how much tax has to be paid, what will be, who will be the body which is going to be looking at the taxation policies, reforms, deductions, what are the exemptions, what are the general deductions under the taxation reforms or taxation policy that you are a part of, what are the tax slabs, so how much taxation you have to pay or you are a part of. All of these things, when the tax has to be paid, what is the time duration of the payment, okay, all of these things should be very clear. So you must have seen that if you are or anybody else from your family is under the a certain tax slab and they are taxpayers, so their registered mobiles will always have an SMS of the date of when they have to pay an income tax or when they have to pay a certain amount of tax related to their incomes. There are emails, there are major announcements and notices given in the newspapers, in the news channels, so that every person who is a taxpayer, they clearly know the date, the time, the deadlines, the exemptions. Everything should be very, very clear. That is the principle of certainty. There should not be any room for arbitration. There should not be any room for confusion, which is why it is highly related to the taxpayer. The canon of certainty is highly favoring the taxpayer, and there are all possible scenarios which are checked by the government policy, so that a taxpayer can clearly know what are the duties that they have to perform, right? So it is a predictable tax system that we are talking about, the predictable tax system, because it improves compliance. Okay, now people, when they know that, okay, this is the amount of tax they have to pay, this is the duration, this is the deadline, these are the exemptions. When people are aware financially, when people are aware about these tax norms, tax reforms, policies, they are more interested in understanding the rules and performing their duties. When there will be ambiguity, when there will be confusion, people will always be disassociating with the taxation policies, and they will dislike the whole process. They'll be like, oh my god, it's such a tedious process. But when there will be certainty, when there will be clarity, people will be very, very compliant towards the tax payment, and it will also reduce corruption. Okay, so which is why a good taxation system should be clear and certain. Then the third principle or the third canon is convenience. The principle of convenience basically means that according to the taxpayer's convenience, the taxation should be reduced or deducted from their incomes. Now here we are not saying that by convenience we mean that whenever the taxpayer will think that, okay, today I will pay the tax, at that convenience the payment should be there. No, it does not mean like that. Convenience means that taxpayer should not have difficulties in paying the tax. Okay, the taxpayer should not worry about deadlines, and consistently there should not be frequent taxations or frequent intervals where the tax has to be paid. Otherwise the taxpayer will be always burdened by these tax payments, right? So which is why it should be convenient. Now you know that there are a lot of good examples, like there is tax deducted at source. Okay, what is tax deducted at source? You must have heard about it a lot. So basically, whoever draws a certain amount of income, monthly income, okay, this small percentage of that income will automatically be deducted and will be submitted to the government as tax, and the person should not worry about paying lump sum amount of tax by the end of the year. That is tax deducted at source. Okay, so that makes the whole process very, very convenient, that the taxpayer should not worry. Another thing is the e-filing system, the digital payment system. When the structure of the tax payment is digital, the infrastructure of the tax payment is structured and very, very convenient, people, the taxpayers, will never be non-compliant. They will always feel that, okay, it's a simple task. It's as easy as you go online and post a comment on Facebook or Instagram. It's as easy as that. Just have to file the income tax. So that becomes again a very easy process. Of course, even today, due to lack of financial literacy in our country, there are many, many people who think that this whole process is very cumbersome, very difficult, but actually it is very clear and very convenient. So when you yourself would make yourself aware about these small duties, it will be very convenient process for you to become a taxpayer, and it will imbibe these principles of convenience and certainty while you pay the tax, right? Also, if I talk about another example, GST collected at the point of sale or purchase. So you know that again, the GST collection is a very easy process, and at then and there, whenever the purchase and sale happens, the GST is collected at a certain rate, whatever that good or service has been presented. the rate that is presented at that good and service. So again, the person who is purchasing something or selling something should not worry about, okay, there's a lump sum amount of tax that has to be collected or that has to be paid to the government, because again, it will be collected at the point of sale or purchase itself. Okay, so that makes the whole system of convenience, which increases the compliances. Again, it increases the compliances and increases the belongingness towards the duties of a taxpayer, right? And then finally, we have the canon of economy. Economy is related to economic efficiency. Okay, so economy means the cost of collecting the tax. Now, the big thing about taxation is that whenever you learn about public finance and whenever you learn about taxation, so taxation is what? Taxation is the revenue generated by the government. Okay, through taxation, the government collects the revenue. Now, if the whole process of tax collection becomes so cumbersome and so difficult and confusing and costly that the revenue collected is less and the cost of collecting the revenue is more, then of course the whole process is faulty and it will be very opposite to economy, very a non-productive activity, right? So a good taxation system in an economy should be on the principle that the cost should be less of collecting the tax, while the more emphasis should be on the collection of tax as the collection of revenue, because that revenue generated by the government will be utilized for doing a lot of other activities of welfare by the government, right? So there's a small example. If the government spends 5 rupees to collect 100 rupees, then it's a good taxation system. But if it spends 30 rupees to collect 100 rupees worth of revenue, then it becomes inefficient. Okay, so again, this example, you do not have to take it numerically that okay, 30 rupees to 29, if it's 29 rupees, then what would happen? Don't take it like that. Think from this angle that the cost of collection should be less, it should be adequate enough, and the revenue focus should be on revenue collection. It should be more, it should have a larger space in the whole taxation policy. Okay, so whether it is the centralized GST reforms like GSTN, or whether it is the e-filing system or the digital infrastructure for tax payment, all of these tax reforms in our nation have contributed to favorable canons of taxation which were mentioned by Adam Smith, right? Now, something that we should note is that Adam Smith gave 4 canons of taxation, but these 4 canons of taxation were normative in nature. Okay, they reflected qualitative adjustments and qualitative performance increase in a taxation system. However, they were not sufficient or adequate. So, which is why another economist, Dalton, and many others also contributed to a few more canons of taxations. Now, these canons are not given by Adam Smith, but these are also equally important. Okay, especially if you are giving any MCQ pattern examination of economics, make sure that apart from the 4 canons of taxation by Adam Smith, you also go ahead looking at these ones. This one is canon of productivity. Canon of productivity means the tax generated should be focused on revenue generation. It should be productive in nature. Canon of elasticity. Tax revenue should expand with economic growth. The elasticity in taxation, again, is a very important public finance and microeconomics mixed principle, which suggests that the revenue should expand along with what? Along with the economic growth. Along with economic growth. Okay, so for example, if I make a curve, okay, and on the x-axis I write economic growth, which you can always suggest from the GDP per capita, okay, and on the y-axis you take tax revenue, right? So what is it saying? It's saying that it should be both ways, increasing both ways, right? So that's canon of elasticity. Then canon of simplicity. The tax laws should be easy to understand. Even today, there are so many people who seem to find it very, very difficult to understand those tax reforms, those huge statements written, and how to summarize, and if it's summarized, and how to understand it, how to apply it, okay? And which is why, of course, we have so many players in the market. We have chartered accountants and cost accountants and professionals and economists to make people understand about these laws, okay? But people themselves should participate in understanding them better, so that it will be even easier for everyone. So the canon of simplicity suggests that the tax norms, policies should be simple, easy to understand. And finally, canon of diversity. Canon of diversity is an interesting one. A mix of taxes is better than relying only on one. So it would mean that a country should not rely on only one tax, but it should have a wide variety of taxes, okay, so that for different times, for different situations, there can be a different taxation rate. Okay, for example, we have GST, then we have wealth tax also, then there's income tax also, corporation tax also. So segregation should be there. Everything cannot come under one umbrella, right? So that's your canon of diversity. Okay, so with this, we basically understand about the taxation system, and you all should note for your all examination purpose that a good taxation system should be easy, should be clear, should be efficient, should be productive, should be just, should be fair, right? So with all of these possible terminologies, I hope that you all are going to excel in your examinations and you're going to understand it even better. If you have any query or any suggestion or any comment on whether India's taxation system is a fair taxation system, then make sure that you comment in the comment section below, okay? And for more such informative videos, stay tuned to Ecoholics. Thank you.